Hey guys, welcome to another edition of the Biohacking Brothers, what's up? We talk all things biohacking, longevity, and human performance. I'm here joined by my brother Miguel. Dr. Rudy is at a conference, so he's doing his thing.
Which is great. We get to talk shit.
We get to talk about the things that he gets a little nervous about.
Yes.
But anyways, this episode, we wanted to bring to the table the topic of peptides. My goodness. There's a lot of information about, peptides, their use, the benefits of it. We also want to bring to the table the controversial side of peptides, right? Like the difference between using research-based peptides versus compounding peptides, the laws that have recently passed on this subject.
How to practically use them. Like realistically,
right? And what's the best return on investment on peptides? Right. We'll talk a little bit about that too. And also, hopefully at the end of this segment, you will have a clear understanding on how to implement peptides into your life for benefits. Now, before we get there though, Meg, I think it would benefit the listener, like from your perspective, because I think, we deliver the message of what a peptide is totally different than most people. Like from your perspective, like what is a peptide? Let's start with that.
So, most of us will look at what a peptide is aligned as a chain of small, it's a short chain of amino acids tied together, yada, yada. None of that matters. What you need to understand is that it's a signaling agent. It's telling your cell to perform a specific job. So just imagine a manager telling its construction workers to go build a Ritz-Carlton or whatever you're going to build. So in terms of human language, we have peptides for tanning. Like if you look at my color, I'm as white as Casper. We can actually put a picture for you guys to see, but my natural color is really white. There's peptides for tanning. There's peptides for focus. There's peptides for healing. There's peptides for fat burning. There's peptides for muscle building. There's peptides to control your appetite. Now we have the GLPs. We have over 7,000 of these peptide reactions in our body daily. And starting with insulin being the first most widespread peptide ever known to mankind.
Yeah. So in terms of safety profile, insulin is a peptide that saved millions of lives, of course, as we know. So the great thing about peptides, I think that, the reason why they become so popular is because they're fairly benign, if you want to call it that. Like they have a little consequence in terms of like side effect profiles, right? So they're fairly, easy to use and safe to use. The problem is that most people are using it haphazardly. And so, I'm trying to kind of round out your point that you were saying about being a signal agent. The way that I like to look at it is a peptide is an instruction manual. It's like a piece of software code. So the way that I like to explain it, it's like, imagine a GC showing up to the construction site and telling its workers, hey guys, we need to build the Ritz-Carlton bathroom, quality bathroom, right? And, the workers are going to be like, cool, that's an awesome project. Where are the materials?
Right.
Right. And so then if, let's say the GC says, well, guys, the economy's been kind of tough. Supply chain issues have been a real problem. So let's try to figure out and do what we can with what we have. Here's a
couple rocks and
yeah. So with like a piece of paper, some rocks and some glue, the workers are going to be like, look, boss, we're with you, but don't expect the Ritz-Carlton quality bathroom, right? So my point in saying that is, kind of to like bring back the last episode that we talked about the importance on supplements. Like the reasons why supplements are so important is because it will give the workers the materials that they need in order to bring forth the instruction manual or the instructions of building that bathroom, right? So, yeah, right. So assuming, and our job as sort of like being a lifestyle practice and teaching you when are the best times to use these, we always like to tell patients that like, first, you have to lay the foundation, and the foundation is based on these molecules that we start to lose because of age and because we're not getting it from our food. We discussed the micronutrient deficiency in the grounds. So the best return on investment on peptides, right, would be if you first set the foundation with all of these supplements. That's how you're going to get the best ROI on peptides. Period. End of story.
We always like to use an analogy. If you plant a mango tree in downtown Miami or in the Amazon, I think we all know logically that you're going to yield more micronutrient density out of the one in the Amazon than the one in the downtown. Why? Think of it, the soil, the air, the environment. Right. So think of your internal milieu, your internal biochemistry, the same as the Amazon or downtown Miami. If you smoke, if you drink, if you're diabetic, you're inflamed, you're not sleeping, you're stressed, well, your biochemistry looks more like the downtown Miami. And if I give you a peptide, you're just not going to get the same response as somebody who's eating well, getting the appropriate amount of sleep, taking the proper targeted supplementation with, organic, clean food is a different story. They're going to have a different outcome. So you want to set up yourself for success, not for failure. And this is why peptides had such a bad name, because somebody will go online. We'll get into the research peptides, but please. Aside from it being crap, but more than anything, their whole physiology and biochemistry is inflamed, and then they take this peptide thinking it's going to do magic. They are pretty damn magical if you set the environment for it, right? They absolutely work. We know it. We have over 3,000 patients to prove that. And you just need to be intelligent about the approach to it.
Yeah, no, absolutely, dude. And I love how you just said it, but to kind of echo that, our job is to be managers of your money, basically, and tell you where to invest it wisely so you can get the most return. Right. And so we always I always like to, a lot of people, it's funny, they call us and they're like, hey, no, I'm interested in peptides. I'm like, listen, that's the third conversation. Yeah. It's not the first conversation. Do you want results? I'm going to try to give you results for less, but I got to set the foundation. And like you said, our job is to create the Amazon inside of your biochemistry first so that we can build that foundation in which we can build an amazing structure. Yeah. Does that make sense?
That's part of our third tier peptides. Yeah. So when people call for peptides, if we don't see they're exercising, sleeping well, tracking their workouts, tracking certain specific things about their health, we tell them, no, we're not giving you peptides. You can go somewhere else.
And we're saying this for the listener, just so you understand the sequence as to kind of the best conditions in which you can use peptides, right? And so we always say it, because I've heard you say it to many people too, and I think we can agree, hormone optimization, if your hormones are out of whack, you shouldn't be looking at peptides, right? Hormone optimization is the trunk of the tree. Yeah. The supplements are sort of the nutrients for the roots, which is what produces the fruit. Right. And then I like to think of peptides as the seasonal ornaments that we put on the branches, right? Right?
There's actually, to be scientific on it, so you have peptides, hormones, and neurotransmitters. They're all signaling molecules. They're all signaling agents. So hormones work more on the peripheral aspect of thing and at a tissue level. Neurotransmitters work at the nervous system level, but peptides can be small and big molecules, so meaning it can behave as a hormone, but it can also behave as a neurotransmitter, and that's why they're so useful, because they're so versatile. And let's define one more thing. For us, a basic peptide protocol is doing one peptide at a time. Intermediate is 2 peptides. Advanced is 3 peptides or more. Right, when I had my meniscus surgery, I was on epithalon, AOD, IGF-103, BPC, thymosin beta-4, GHK copper peptide. I was on
a large commitment.
and believe it or not, the doctor was really impressed by how fast my recovery. They all have specific effects, but when put together, the total sum effect of them working together is much greater than individually put apart.
Yeah, for sure. And so that's what we wanted to bring to the listener is kind of the accuracy as to how to use them, when to use them, what are the best conditions where you'll get the most return on investment. So, to kind of close that loop, obviously you need to be optimized. You need to be living the lifestyle if you want to see tangible, visible results on peptides, or else you're kind of just flushing it down the toilet. Like you said, if you're pre-diabetic and you put a peptide into an inflamed body, it's going to burn up, right? It's going to burn up. That's why when you do stem cells, for example, if you're pre-diabetic, they'll tell you, no, we need you to bring your A1C down because the inflammation will kill the cells.
I actually didn't know that.
Yeah. Peptides are exactly the same way. So now that we've kind of covered that, I think, we beat that to hell. Let's talk a little bit about quality. because I think that this is where people.
Well, before we get into the quality, let's talk about some of the most well-known peptides, which will be around because with our IRB. Right?
Well,
are we talking about the RB?
Yeah, we're definitely going to talk about the RB.
We don't have to talk about the RB right now. Let's just talk about peptides, meaning peptides are sort of on their way out, unfortunately.
Yeah. And to clarify to the listener, so the FDA, peptides, this is what happened. Like there was a widespread use of peptides, right? They have like all of these peptide websites that became really popular. People started to learn about them, and it just kind of went out of control in terms of like the people purchasing these peptides. So the FDA went to the pharmacy board and said, "Hey, you guys are selling these peptides to people. We have no studies. We have no like double-blind placebo. Like we don't have an overwhelming amount of studies that show safety or efficacy, right?" And so what the FDA didn't like that. It communicated that to the board of pharmacy. The board of pharmacy doesn't want to poke the bear of the FDA, so they went and put all of these peptides that were not FDA approved, meaning that they didn't have enough studies, they put them on a banned list, right? So a do not compound list. Right. So a lot of the popular peptides, and we'll talk about some of them, a lot of the popular peptides that, like the CJC, the BPC, like all these very popular peptides, which now you and I call them sort of like commercial peptides, right? Because now there's individualized peptides, and we'll get into that. But these commercial peptides were kind of in one swoop were taken out of the market, right? They were taken out of the market, even though they were really amazing. And for years, we have been using this.
Yeah, and just to be clear, the reason why they don't have studies is because for the most part, funding studies could cost on average, it would cost you $800 million or more to make a study on one specific peptide. Yep. And there's over like 100 peptides. Yeah. And big pharma, we're not going to go down that rabbit hole, but they're not really interested in promoting these things because they can't patent them. Remember, it's very important for you guys to understand that big pharma is interested in patenting medication because they have control over it. Yeah. So they can make a medication for example, there's a schizophrenic drug that they make for 50 cents in Asia, and here in the United States, they sell it for $1,000 a pill. Yeah. So they're not interested in it because there's not a lot of money to be made because they got too much competition. If they can't patent it, then they're dealing with a lot of compounders, pharmacies like the ones that we work with, so it dilutes their profits and shareholder, right?
For sure.
So the point is, we've seen a lot of this funny business going on, especially when COVID hit. There was specific peptides that we saw incredible bounce back, which we're not going to get into the C word, but there was a lot of good feedback from using these peptides. We also know they absolutely work because we're part of the Seed Scientific Research Group Forum, which is a forum of possibly 120 of the best doctors in the world discussing peptides. If you don't believe us, just put Dr. William Seeds on YouTube and you're going to get mind.
Oh my God, yeah. Mind effed.
Yeah, mind effed. So the point is, we are part of a community where we're always seeing patient cases, and we've seen personally in our practice with many doctors, and for years, we've seen the efficacy of what these peptides do. Oh, yeah. And what we love about them is that if you don't react to them, meaning the side effect of not reacting is that you get no response. Yeah. It's not like you're going to grow a third eye or something, but they're very effective if your body responds well to them. So maybe we can get into a little bit.
I just want to put people at peace that, you discussed that there are so many different peptides. And even though a lot of the most popular ones are quote unquote gone, there's still a lot of alternatives that do the same job, if not better. And the cool thing about this ban is that it's also inspired innovation. Yeah. Right. So we have similar peptides or the same molecules that have been upgraded. Yeah. And now they're accessible.
Second or third generations.
Right. Now they're accessible. So, if you're interested about peptides and the commercial ones that are available now, obviously give us a call and we'll point you in the right direction. Right. Now, moving on to the next step, we definitely, and this is a call of awareness for us to you listener about quality.
Well, before you hit the quality, I want to hit one more that we didn't nip in the butt. One of the things that we always ask clients, and when you get the silent moment, is, pharmacogenomics medicine, which means how our genetic makeup reacts to certain medications. We have them mapped out, how our bodies react to certain medications at a genetic level. So we have them mapped out for emergency drugs. So if you end up at the ER, while there are medications that can save your life, genetically speaking, they can be toxic for you.
For some other
So
purpose.
we have mapped out the human genome. We mapped it out in 2003, and we've been able to create awareness and prescription medication recommendations based on that person's genetic response.
Yes.
Now, in the world of peptides and hormones, I mean,
Wild West.
Exactly. So how do we know that you've gotten, this is how the whole thing of giving the cells the proper resources came about, because how do we know that you're getting 100% of the response? I mean, it started between you and me.
Yeah.
We would take the same peptides. You would have sometimes great results, but I had none.
Yeah. Or vice versa.
Right. So the point is, how do we know that you're responding 100% to that peptide?
Right.
We don't have a way to do it because we haven't mapped out the human genome till now. Till now. We'll get into that. But the point is, you might take BPC to reduce inflammation, right? And you don't get a response. Well, that's maybe because your genetic traits don't respond to BPC, but they might respond to thymosin beta 4, etc.
Right.
So I feel like that was important to say.
Yeah, no, 100%. So,
So this is why, since we can't test, at least let's give yourselves the proper resources to maximize your best chance of having good odds at responding well. And if you don't, we know, I mean, the only possible case that's still left is that, genetically speaking, you just don't respond to it. Yeah. So move on to the next. That's 100%. How we make our patients experts, or what we call chief medical officers, in their journey, because we get to see which peptides work and which ones don't. Yeah. And
at the very base level, at least for the commercial peptides, and before we get into the genetic stuff, like a lot of it, unfortunately, and this is the reality of it, is a little bit of trial and error. Like, you just have to roll the dice and see if that peptide is something that you respond to. But again, like you said, the best case use is give yourself the highest chance for reward by optimizing the molecules that you're missing first, your nutrients, your supplements, and obviously hormone optimization if that's necessary.
Right. Show up to a court case with the proper paperwork
that's a good way to put it.
Be ready. I just came up with that one.
That's a good way to put it.
Guys, what we do for a living is all about creating analogies that you can relate to, right? So think about that. Imagine showing up to a court case without any preparation. Yeah. I mean, you're going to get annihilated. Yeah. So you got to get prepared. Right? And this is what we're dealing with here.
For sure. So now let's talk about quality, because that's super important, right? So the big controversy, and it's a financial one as well as a sort of geographical one, and I'll get into that. So we wanted to tell you that, yes, indeed, without a shadow of a doubt, there is a stark difference between using a research-based peptide, meaning something that you can buy online. I'm not going to mention any names, but something that you can buy online without a doctor's prescription, versus a compound that is made at a pharmacy that's regulated and often inspected by the FDA, who have third-party testers that are like, their relationship is really to the FDA, not the compounder, which prohibits any kind of conflict of interest.
Right.
So we'll get into that. But, from your perspective, like, what do you think is the most important thing to know about the difference, and, this will start the conversation, between research-based peptides, non-prescription-based peptides, and compounded version peptides?
Well, number one is that they're rigorously graded for their purity and efficacy. And so if you are somebody who is familiar with peptides, a lot of these peptide research websites have gotten pretty savvy with, hey, let me provide you with a certificate of analysis, which says the purity of their peptides. Right. However, the problem with that is that there's two things to it. So the certificate analysis to who and what, because who are they testing this on, right? So when they say that for a peptide to be effective, and based on Dr. William Seitz, who's one of the most credited, world-renowned peptide specialists in the world and understands it better than anybody, just put them online and you'll see what I mean, has shown that, hey, what when they say it's 99, that a peptide needs to be 99.6% pure
Minimum.
for it to be effective, safe, and for you to not have any erratic reaction.
And it's 99.6% human.
Human. That's what I was about to go.
Yeah.
So the certificate analysis of these companies will show a 99.6%, and literally they all have 99.6% purity. But when you equate it with the formulation and technology and screening of machinery that the FDA or compounding pharmacy industry is using, it actually sums up to be more like 75 to 95% pure. And here's the problem with that. Peptides could fragmentalize, meaning it could break down into fragments that can be hepatotoxic, meaning toxic to your liver. It can damage your DNA and in many cases lead to cancer. So
just a joke so that people understand. So remember, a peptide is an instruction manual. It's like a software code. Right. So imagine there's a break. There's a break in that software code where it actually tells the cells to perform the wrong job. Right. Because a lot of people say, oh, yeah, well, it's 95% pure, so I'll get a little bit less response, but it's still good. Right. No. Let me just kind of break it down very simply. Why the difference between compounded versus, research-based?
So you get 95 to 99.6% difference is a stark difference. It's not like, 95 is pretty. No. It's like ginormous.
Yeah. So this is how it works. So a compounder has to make the peptides. They have to take 10% of that yield, right? And they have to pay for the batch. Right. And every single batch that they are going to sell for human consumption has to be sent to a third-party inspector that is governed by the FDA that reports to them and tells them, yes, this is a purity level accepted peptide for human consumption. Here's the problem. Research-based peptides don't have the same kind of oversight. These third-party providers that they tell you that they've tested it with a third-party provider are paid by them. Yeah. So if I'm a good client of yours and one batch doesn't come, hey, listen, come on, man. There is so much room for conflict of interest there, number one. But number two, like Miguel was saying, well, 90%, 95% purity in comparison to what?
To whom or
right?
what?
To what? Because these peptides that are on research-based peptides are meant to not be for human or animal consumption whatsoever.
Yeah, I mean, eventually read the statement before you do that. So the certificate analysis, the other thing you can look at, again, when they tell you it's 99.6, to whom and what, and they cannot pinpoint and show you that it was done, number one, in humans. And number two, the details under certificate analysis cannot be linked back to the manufacturer who actually manufactured these peptides.
Right.
99.9% of them are brought from China. And whatever they put in there, I mean, I always tell people, oh no, I'm willing to shave some costs and get them online, but then you're injecting something to your body that you cannot guarantee the purity. You can't even, what my brother's about to read is going to blow your mind. But I always tell people, I mean, if you're going to inject something into your body, you want to make sure it's as safe as possible. And hence why going through a compounding pharmacy or a medical practice like us, it's going to be slightly more expensive because it goes through more rigorous testing and it needs to be approved by third-party auditors where it ends up costing more.
Yes.
But you're guaranteeing that what you're putting into your body is freaking safe.
Yeah, this is the one thing.
It's not going to cause you cancer or blindness. I mean, for God's sake, we had the other day a patient of ours telling us they took their Peptide, which is GOP that makes you, burn fat and lose weight, and that she was becoming blind from it.
Yeah.
Truly blind. Like the optometrist told her that she was losing her sight at a pace she had never seen, that she needs to go get help.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the type of stuff that could happen.
And listen, just to kind of, I know we would be later the point, but so here's what we want you to understand. So we've done a lot of research on this. Our legal team has done a lot of research because when the peptides and the compounding industry became banned, right? They did not ban them for the peptide websites, right? Which is crazy. right? Like, why would you take away the ones that are safe and leave the ones that are wild, wild west? This is what's happening. So we went and did a lot of research
with our attorney. You
with
can
our
send us a
attorneys
tip later for it.
And he found the common denominator to all of these websites, how they indemnify themselves, is by like over, and I encourage anybody to just look at any one of these. You'll see that you'll find it over and over and over in all these websites. The way that they indemnify is by repeating over and over and over statements like this. Number one, that these products are intended for laboratory use only, not for human or animal use or consumption of any kind at any time. Then it talks about how they don't guarantee that what's on the label is what you're actually getting.
That's scary, man.
Which is ridiculous.
And it's retarded if you're reading this and not actually following
Which
it.
is ridiculous.
Well, no, excuse me.
And then the last one, wait, let me just
people
finish.
People are not reading this.
Yeah, they're not reading this. But the last
stuff.
piece is some of these chemicals that are in there might be on the toxic list.
That's crazy. Well, I mean, this is, again, it shows most of it is coming from China. What the hell are they using in there? What ingredients are being used?
Yes.
And the fact that they're being indemnified is the scariest part.
Scary.
I just don't understand how the FDA knows this stuff, and it's not like sees the BS.
Yes,
and it's like no. This needs to you need
Stop.
to get rid of this right now, because a lot of people who are unfortunately with us getting peptides through a medical practice now are kind of inclined to going online and buying these things and being tempted to use them, and then having some serious side effects.
Yeah.
Because they can be injecting some real toxic compounds here.
And so as a consumer, I always say, look,
So wait, the FDA went from banning the real good stuff to allowing people inject some crazy stuff.
Which is exactly the point that I was trying to make. Wow. Look, there's a lot of bad things that the FDA has done for sure. Like, we're not saying, FDA is the end all be all, but there's a lot of things that they've done right. And one of the things that they got right was this compounding third party thing. Right? Where they are making sure that what you're getting can actually be ingested by a human. So you want that guarantee, which no other peptide website can give you.
By the way, they're really good. FDA is actually really good. And when they actually inspect a product or a medication and do approval for it, they're actually good at that process. So,
and you touched up on a subject that I want to kind of pounce on is the people's what's it called? They have a temptation to, hey, now since these are no longer commercially available, I'm going to go peptide websites. Or they say, hey, the price difference is kind of stark. Let me go for the cheaper route, right? Let me be the one to tell you that is a stupid move. First of all, from a experience perspective, and Miguel can testify to this, I can't tell you how many hundreds and hundreds of patients we have had who have come to us from these peptide websites, who have gotten all kinds of weird effects from peptides that we've never seen, and that the results are and then they go on compounded peptides, and it's a stark difference.
And the way we can prove this, you guys, this is how we really know terzepatide, which is literally the most used peptide in the world right now. There's a 5-year back shortage on it, and it cuts your hunger. So typical dose you start is 2.5 milligrams. You can climb up all the way to 5 milligrams, then all the way up to 15 milligrams. Obviously, this is in a course of weeks, right? Yeah. But so we'll hear people taking 10 milligrams and say, I haven't really seen the results. And then actually take 2.5 milligrams of the real compounded stuff. And oh my God.
Yes. Total difference.
Different result.
So when you look at when you do the math in terms of what you're spending for what you're getting, the math doesn't even make sense. It's just not worth it.
You don't know. You're paying for something you don't even know what's in there.
Yeah, even from a safety perspective, it's not worth it, but definitely not from a performance perspective, right? So if you're someone who's considering, going to a peptide website, I would highly encourage you not to, especially when you read the fine print on it. So don't, not everything that shines is gold. So make sure that you're not tempted to go to these websites because they're just not proven safe, right? They're just not
fake
proven safe.
Gold chains.
And then in terms of the performance, they're also super, super subpar. Not to mention that they don't give you any instructions on how to mix it and what kind of dosage
They'll
get.
go to jail or they'll be shut down immediately. They even did
So
that.
what better way than to come to professionals that are going to know when to implement it and what are the conditions that these peptides are going to work the best, and that you are going to get a guarantee that what you are taking is absolutely safe and engineered for human consumption.
Yeah, but on top of it it's how to cyclically use them, how to strategically use them. What's your goal? What are you trying to do? There's so many variables that even if you got legitimate peptides online, you're still, okay, how do you use them? How do you mix them? How do you inject them? How frequent, right? There's a half-life to these medications. Understand that, for example, CJC has a half-life of 30 minutes. Ipamorelin has a half-life of 2 hours. IGF-103 has a half-life of 20 hours. So how often are you injecting them? Because if you inject them too often, then you're going to cause a cellular saturation point and you're going to be pissing your money.
Right.
So you really need the guidance. I can give you the GPS, but unless you know how to use it, you're going to go nowhere, right?
Not to mention that we get a lot of patients that have been on peptides for an extended amount of time when they were supposed to take a break. I've heard people saying, "Oh, I've been on tesamorelin for 18 months." I'm like, you were only supposed to be on that for 6 weeks.
Yeah.
So anyways, I think we're a little bit over time. This is a very deep topic I do want to get into on the next segment. So just to give you a teaser, like how you're able to have access to compounding peptides, which are the safest and most efficacious compounds that you can use with the guidance of a medical professional who's going to guide you through the process. That's incredibly important. So we want to talk about how you can get access to that, how you can get human grade access to these peptides that have now been banned by the FDA and most pharmacies are not making, because there is a way that you can do this legally and for human consumption. And we're going to tell you all about that in the next segment. And also sort of like, I would call it the crown royale of peptides, which is how do you compound peptides that are specific for your genetics?
Now we're talking about genetics here.
So meaning
peptides genetically engineered for your uniqueness. I mean, it's incredible.
So to give you the perspective real quick, and we'll close with this, the CJCs, the BPCs, and all these compounds that you have heard before, is kind of like going to Saks Fifth Ave and grabbing a suit off the rack versus going to a tailor and having a specific suit made for just you.
Right. Which is a big difference.
We'll get into that in the next segment. Thank you for listening. We hope you enjoyed this segment and gain a lot from it. Again, always
follow us, share this, hear it,
all that,
dance to it, support us.
If
you want to keep this going, and I promise you, we're going to deliver radical but practical. Ooh, I like how that sounds. Information that you can actually utilize on your day-to-day life.
And if you have any questions at any time, make sure to give us a call. Anybody that picks up the phone is going to be a qualified coach that can teach you for free about this stuff. So
we've worked really hard to get these people on the phone to be able to respond 99% of questions that most doctors will not be able to answer and that they can answer. They just can't make any medical recommendations, but I can promise you they're walking encyclopedias.
Yes.
They know a lot of information. Utilize our team. Call us. It would really help you.
And so until then, stay healthy.
And God bless.
God bless.